Welcome to the Viking Age podcast, the official podcast of the VikingAge.com. My name is Chris Schad. I write for the Viking Age Puckett's Pond and Zone coverage. My co-host, as you see him on the screen, friend of the show, Nick Marty. We do this every Monday with a late week episode right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. We're also in podcast form on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But however you consume us, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode and we can spread the word to the masses. Today's show, we're going to continue to mourn the fact the Vikings aren't playing this weekend. We're going to talk about what needs to change this offseason and a whole bunch of other stuff that will be determined. But first, I would like to formally welcome everyone to bullshit season, because if you've been on TikTok, I don't know if, I guess TikTok's getting banned, so I don't know what these guys are going to do anymore, but you've probably heard it already. Yo, top 5 trade destinations, Kevin O'Connell. We going to put him with Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes need a quarterback coach. We going to give him one. Although he's probably overqualified for that position. Apparently Kevin O'Connell is a little upset about his contract. Jay Glazer had a report a couple weeks ago that several teams were interested in trading for Kevin O'Connell. The Vikings lost their final 2 games immediately after that report came out, which is hilarious. And then Mike Florio jumped into the ring and said there was tension between Kevin O'Connell and the Wilfs, said he wanted a contract at the beginning of the season. He also said that he wanted more in roster control with Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. Now, O'Connell, during his contract extension, didn't say much out of surprise to no one. He is heading into the final year of a 4-year deal. So let's start here, Nick Marty. Is this bullshit, or do we need to worry about Kevin O'Connell getting traded?
Listen, both of these reports made me laugh. Number one, the Jay Glazer one. Teams wanted to trade for O'Connell. Well, duh. Have you seen what he's done the last few years? If I'm the Jaguars, heck yeah, I would love to trade for Kevin O'Connell. If I'm the Raiders, yeah, trade for Kevin O'Connell. It doesn't mean the Vikings are actively shopping him. That was such a weird one for me that people got, even Paul Allen around, like, got so fired up about it. It's like, if you listen to what he said, he just said, yeah, there are teams that would love to trade and are interested in trading for Kevin O'Connell. Guess what? I'm interested in trading for Andy Reid. I would love to get Andy Reid in here. That he's a pretty good coach. Doesn't mean the Chiefs are going to have any momentum towards that at all. So that one to me is a complete throwaway talker because, well, duh, he's a very darn good coach who's great with quarterbacks, and you can just see the difference in him. Now, the tension. Yep, I was gonna say the tension one. Mike Florio, who loves to stir the pot, right? Let's start with the source once again. Mike Florio, Mr. You know what? I'm just gonna say this thing and watch how people run with it. Well, I mean, he's in the middle of a contract negotiation. Well, duh, there's tension. Once again, like, there's going to be tension because he wants to get paid, but there's no indication that the Vikings don't want to bring him back. And why wouldn't they want to bring him back? That one, once again, feels like agent speak, feels like Florio stirring the pot because he loves to do that. He goes on with Paul Allen every week. He likes to keep his name in the headlines as, you know, that shock jock kind of controversial take. And so both of these reports to me are kind of a lot about nothing in my mind.
Maybe he wanted to trade Justin Jefferson from Malik Neighbors. Maybe that's what.
Hey, did you know that I think I'm reporting right now that there are teams around the league that would love to trade for Justin Jefferson? I'm reporting that.
Wow.
Currently, breaking news. I know I have sources that have told me the teams want to trade for Justin Jefferson. So, I hope that doesn't cause friction in the locker room.
Well, I heard,
that's dumb.
I heard that teams have called the Kansas City Chiefs about Patrick Mahomes' availability as well. They said they wanted to trade for him. And I don't know.
How dare you start that right before the playoffs? Do you know how much that's going to affect that team that you're reporting that right now? Like, come on, man.
Well, and here's the thing too. Like, I wasn't upset with Glazer's report. It's just like you said, it's no duh, right? But he also doesn't just wake up and be like, these teams are thinking about trading for him, there's probably a reason why he did that. And I think the whole thing is some people think his agent, Kevin O'Connell's, might have dropped it to Jay Glazer and said, hey, my client doesn't have a contract, which if that happened, that's really weird timing. Like, hey, my client is about to take on the biggest game of his career. I'm going to drop that he needs to get a contract extension like hours before right now and see what happens. And everybody just kind of nervously laughed and acted all. I mean, it's like, no, duh. But also, too, I feel like the Wilfs are to blame for this mess. And the rumor is, according to Florio, that O'Connell wanted a contract extension before this season. And I think the Wilfs might have looked at the optics. I think there are two things that came into play here. The Wilfs have reached contract extensions with coaches before, and they've fallen off a cliff. So, there's Brad Childress, there's whatever. Mike Zimmer was another one that got a contract extension. They had to fire him right after that. Like, they've paid coaches to sit at home because they've fallen off a cliff. And, it's understandable from that standpoint because Kevin O'Connell won the division in his first season. They stripped some things down and they went 7-10 the second season. Now, O'Connell would probably go, hey, I did this with Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs. Pay me. Like, you look at the culture here. Like, I just drafted a quarterback. I'm starting to make my home here. But the Wilfs, if they extended Kevin O'Connell after a 7-10 season, it might have given them the optics that they had back in 2022, which is they don't really care about like if the Vikings are Super Bowl contenders. They just want to be in the hunt and all that stuff. So I think there were factors at play, and that's why Mark Wilf came out during training camp and said, hey, we're evaluating here. We want to see what happens this year, and we're going to talk to him at the end of the year. Because if I were them, I wouldn't want to, unless they initiated it, I would not want to talk to my head coach and general manager in the middle of a season because they have better things to do. So, I mean, I think part of it was a Wilfs mess. Part of it's O'Connell. It makes sense. But now we're in this weird place where people are freaking out because he's not wearing Viking stuff at the press conference. And, God forbid he has an Instagram account because we'd probably be like, oh my God, he scrubbed all his Viking stuff from Instagram. Like I said, this is bullshit season. This is like the lead to it. Like Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah's in this too, which is much more low profile because, I mean, if Kevin O'Connell leaves, he'll just hire another coach. But all of these things are kind of intertwining right now, and it's a very weird situation.
Yeah, I'm not even convinced there's a mess. This feels like two sides positioning themselves for a negotiation where both sides, it just feels like a business thing, right? Kevin wants to get as much money as he can. He's got the leverage now to talk about two, very successful seasons out of three, and another where he did all right with very few pieces. So I think Kevin, wins in this scenario because he has a ton of leverage currently. And I don't blame the Wilfs for not extending last year, right? Like they had every right. And if a coach is going to be that hurt and couldn't see the self-reflection of like, well, I get why they're waiting a year, right? Like this is the moment both sides have kind of waited for, right? Now the Wilfs have seen enough. And if they don't extend now, then yes, the Wilfs, they will create a mess. But I still believe that if they come with a number big enough for Kevin, the KOC is not going anywhere. It is the Wilfs have every bit of resources and availability. KOC is not going to pack his stuff up and leave because he is hurt that they didn't offer him an extension next year. Now, if they lowball him, if they drag their feet on this, then maybe. But I'm not convinced there's a mess yet. This feels so generated as a tactic, a negotiating tactic. This feels so manufactured, this mess. You talked about he didn't wear Viking stuff. I don't remember who on Twitter, like, he's done that a bunch of times in press conference. Like chill out, like relax. Like this culture of like freaking out over everything is really bugging me lately. And I don't even think there's a mess. They're going to find a number. There's no way they let KOC walk out the door. Zero chance, I think. Kwesi's the one who you could maybe convince me to have a conversation on. But KOC he's great. He's everything you want. He's young. He's up and coming. He's hip and now. He lost a couple. Yeah, right. Like he's staying. Like, this is not a mess yet. You talk to me in 3 months. If they haven't worked something out, then we'll have a much different conversation.
And here's the other thing. Where's he going to go? Like, the Vikings have a championship caliber roster. Like you said, unless like the Wolves turn into the poll ads and don't offer him anything, he's got a championship level roster. He's got the best facilities in the NFL. He's got owners who are willing to spend. Like, it does feel a lot like nothing. The one thing that I might, and you mentioned it too with Kwesi, because that was going to be my next question. Like, do you extend both of them? Because Kevin O'Connell mentioned in this report, I don't think it was from him directly, but somebody associated with him mentioned it directly, that he wants more say in roster construction. What do you think that means? Because we hear all the time, collaboration, and we're going back and forth, and we're taking everybody's ideas and all this stuff. It seems like that's really overblown. But when you think about it, there are certain moments where you look at those two and you go, yeah, maybe Kevin O'Connell is a little annoyed that they traded down for all those picks in the 2022 draft, or even on camera, he's seeing their employee Kwesi, just don't trade down, take Jordan Addison, like, do this. Like, do you think there's a rift there?
I don't know if there's a rift. But I think if you're going to criticize Kwesi in any way, it's obviously what he's done in that draft room, right? And if he has done nothing to make me say, yeah, keep giving Kwesi complete control, right? Of the two of them, it feels like KOC is the mind and the person that tends to get it right more often. So what does that report mean? That KOC wants more roster control, right? Like, does he want a bigger say? Like, who knows what that really means? But if it gets to a point where KOC is helping to make some of these draft picks and that's helping us to draft in a better way, then I'm all for it, right? Like, I've never been a person that loves the like coach GM together role, but if they haven't taken KOC's like wisdom into account in these last few drafts, and obviously the results have spoken for themselves. We haven't exactly knocked it out of the park. Then hopefully Kwesi is, self-aware enough as well to be like, well, maybe I need to get a different mind in the room because my statistical analysis isn't crushing it here. And so for his own sake, if KOC and him, they feel like they are in this together. And so I'm okay if that means that there's more communication or what. I mean, it's hard to answer that question without knowing, like, what is that control? What has he been missing? Versus, what is he going to try to negotiate in that would change the way their dynamic is?
Kwesi is just a very interesting case because, like you mentioned, the drafts have not been good. Like, it's been Jordan Addison and nothing. And hopefully it's JJ McCarthy, who we'll get to in just a little bit. But free agency, letting players, like, the thing with Kwesi is, if you go back to the 2021 Vikings and just go down the depth chart, that whole roster is pretty much gone. Like, he did the scorched earth rebuild and we didn't even know about it. Like, it's just like, whoa, everybody's gone. Like, he lets Kirk Cousins walk. They wind up using that money, getting Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman. Like, he signs Byron Murphy in free agency. Like, he has hit on all those picks. It's the draft that's like the final infinity stone and the gauntlet for the Vikings right now because they haven't done a good job with that. Now, does that fall on Kwesi or does that fall on his guy, Ryan Grigson, who is in the front office, already failed as a player personnel guy, but he's the football guy? Like, I wonder if Kevin O'Connell wants something similar to what's going on with the 49ers, where John Lynch is the GM, but Kyle Shanahan runs that team. He is the guy who has say over the 53-man roster. He's the guy who has a significant say over who is drafted. Like, he has his fingerprints on it, kind of like the grocery roll. I don't think like doing a GM coach combo is good for any coach in the NFL, but I think that if you have an ideal relationship, I do think that the Niners are doing it the right way, because the coach deals with the players on the field. Get me the players that I know I can work with, instead of, well, we're going to trade back and we're going to take Walter Rouse in the 6th round. So, not to throw a stray at Walter Rouse. I'm just saying, that seems to be the issue right now, is maybe that is the draft, and maybe that is a personnel thing where Kevin O'Connell wants to say, hey, if I don't like Ed Ingram, I don't want him on my team.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me. Like that type of role, I think, is healthy for an organization. It makes, like, if you're going to trust a coach and you're going to invest so much resources in that position, and there's so much that goes into it, I agree they should be able to have their fingerprints on the roster in some sort of way. So, yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. If that's a role like San Francisco, I think it's healthy. I think it improves this organization. And Kwesi seems like a guy who would be open to that, right? He doesn't seem like the kind of like dictator-esque, like my way or the highway. I think that's what's made him successful over his years, and what drew the Vikings to him is like he seems like, I mean, at least in what he talks or how he talks, like an adaptable guy who's going to learn from what he's done and is really going to adjust his own tactics to be able to be successful.
He's a guy that listens to all of the information. Like he said this before, where I think a guy like Rick Spielman was like, I'm a football guy and I know what's going on. And Mike Zimmer's like, the fuck you don't. Like Kwesi's just like, okay, Kevin O'Connell has this opinion, Gregson has this opinion. I'm going to make one big decision and we're all going to live with it. And I think everybody, for the most part, is on board. Maybe Kevin's not feeling like he's being heard enough. I don't know. Long story short, I don't think any of this like keeps the contract from getting done. Like, the Wills will go in, O'Connell will agree to a contract. And honestly, I think they need to get this done right away, because you don't want it to linger over the offseason. You have a bunch of free agent money. Are you going to go to free agency and be like, so are you guys going to be around past this year or what? Like, I think it happens very quickly in the offseason, and maybe even before. I think the Senior Bowl is actually the first, but yeah, I think it happens very
it's
quickly.
Gotta get done.
Yeah, or combine. I'll say the combine. I bet you it's done by the combine. So the Vikings need to get a contract with their coach and GM. But there's a lot of other things they also need to take care of, including Sam Darnold. Of course, Darnold, great season overall, crashed out over the last 2 games. I know I sound hip by saying that, but that's really the reality of the situation. Like, should the Vikings keep Sam Darnold? And like, the other thing that's been poking in my brain is this a lot like the Kirk Cousins situation, or is this completely different in your mind?
Well, 2 questions. No, I don't think they should keep Sam Darnold. I actually think that for the first time in a long time with the quarterback position, to me, these last 2 games have given clarity to the situation. I think the difference between this and Kirk is Kirk never had 2 bottom out games like we just saw. I mean, the moment looked too big twice in a row for Sam Darnold. No, not all of that is on him. Like, I very much understand that our interior offensive line let him down. I understand that I think KOC was calling too many of those deep dropping routes. He had to adjust better. But there was things Sam did that made me go, I'm not going to invest that money. And it makes sense at this point in time to just cut the cord, say thank you for an amazing run. Thanks for a fun season that no one saw coming. But you attach yourself to the plan that you had originally. You move forward with all of this money with JJ McCarthy. To me, these last 2 games brought clarity to Sam could be great, but he's not going to get you to the promised land. And that's where I am shooting now. I'm not shooting for 13-win seasons and first round exits. I'm shooting for I need a bulldog in the playoffs. I need a guy who's going to rise to the occasion in this town versus someone who only shows up small in really big moments, which tends to be the kind of superstars that we get in this town. And I am at a point in my life and just in watching this team where I'm always shooting bigger, and I'm willing to miss because I know what Sam Darnold's ceiling is, and I feel like we saw it this year. And I don't know what JJ is, and he's a guy who won a national championship, and I get that it's different. I get that he had a great running game, but he was in big moments and he played really well in those big moments. And so I mean, as much as these losses have hurt, Sam playing as poorly as he did gave me clarity to say, no, thank you.
It is a little bit different of a situation between Sam Darnold and Kirk Cousins. Cousins 36 coming off the Achilles. I think a lot of people saw his drop off coming outside of Atlanta. He could not be franchise tagged. He had a clause in his contract. He was going to cost you more than you were willing to pay. And I mean, there are avenues that the Vikings could bring Sam Darnold back. JJ McCarthy is throwing now. They did say that yesterday at their end of season press conferences, but you could franchise tag Darnold, and it would actually help him because it would require teams to pay the $88 million that he would make in the first 2 seasons. Tom Pelissero dropped that number on KFXN yesterday, where he just said, the first year it's 41.325 million. Second year it's whatever the math is, 45 million. So you need $88 million in the first 2 years, even to get Sam Darnold. Maybe you do want to do the short-term Band-Aid, 41.325 million. If you don't feel like JJ McCarthy is ready, and maybe if he doesn't want to be here, you can get draft capital for him because everybody, I think the thing that people want to compare it to is Matt Castle in 2008, where you have Tom Brady. He tore his ACL. Matt Castle comes in, they go 10-6 and miss the playoffs. But I mean, Darnold did way more statistically, and part of that is because it's a more wide open game. But Matt Castle got traded to the Chiefs. The Chiefs gave up, the Chiefs got a second round pick and Mike Vrabel, and I think I'm goofing that up a little bit. I think the Patriots got a second round pick, which wound up being Patrick Chung in that trade. So everything worked out well, and Matt Castle got paid and flopped in Kansas City. So, I mean, bringing him back, there's an avenue for it because everybody's like, well, you can't spend as much on free agents. You can push some of that money into 2026. It's not ideal, but the Vikings did it this year with all their free agents. They were dealing with the most dead money in the league, and they pushed the contracts of Aaron Jones, Blake Cashman, and all those guys into next year. The thing is, too, we're going to hear a lot about, hey, the Vikings want to keep Sam Darnold. You're going to see rumors. And that's because the Vikings need to create leverage themselves. Kevin O'Connell, when he talked about Sam Darnold, he said, hey, it was a great run. We loved it, but it just didn't work out. And I don't think he was just talking about the last 2 games. Because when he was asked about the quick stuff, like, hey, why don't you have more quick game installed? He basically said, well, it was in there, but sometimes we need to be more decisive with our reads, like not hold on to the ball for 7 seconds, like Sam Darnold did on Monday night. There are little tea leaves here and there. So it's ebb and flow. And I think if they bring back Darnold, I'm not going to be upset. Like if they brought back Kirk last year, I was going to be pissed because he wanted a long-term contract. But if they let Darnold walk or they trade Darnold, they tag and trade him or do whatever in that thing to give the keys to JJ McCarthy, I am unbelievably excited about JJ McCarthy next year. And I think that's kind of the outcome people want, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, the 2 thoughts that come to my mind are Number one, I'm really interested to see what the market is for Sam Darnold after these 2 games. Because you talk about a tag and trade, like you got to have a dance partner to do that. And I want to know how much these 2 games, maybe they don't mean anything, and you can get a franchise like the Browns or the Jaguars or the someone that is willing to be a trade partner there. But you got to think that his value was significantly hurt with these last 2 games. And so you tag him, you try to trade him, like you got to have a second partner. So that's my first kind of thought is what is his value currently? Because I really don't have a great read on it where I felt like I did before the Lions game. It felt like, yeah, there's going to be a team that's going to look at this and go, great, let's do this. The other reason I'm pretty anti bringing him back is there's going to be a faction of the Vikings fandom that if JJ struggles, right, there's a controversy that I just don't think you need. A young quarterback's going to need a moment to breathe, and if you have Sam Darnold there as well, right, if you bring him back, and even if you go JJ or Darnold, like it just feels like it creates a controversy, a split decision. That if JJ's healthy, that you got some people who want JJ, some people that are going to want Darnold, and I just don't think that that's a super healthy thing for either side. And so, yeah, those were just kind of my 2 thoughts thinking about it. Now, if JJ's hurt, like if internally he's not going to be ready, that's going to be the one situation where I'm like, okay, maybe a tag makes sense for one more year. But other than that, I'm just kind of ready unless his value's high and you got a trade partner. Let's turn the keys over.
I mean, it seems like it would be ripe because there's Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward in this draft. And again, you don't know. You could always get a Brock Purdy at the end of the draft or something weird to happen. Excuse me. You never know with the draft. But you also look at this and you go, okay, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, are you really plugging a rookie in there and seeing what happens? I mean, you kind of need. I mean, they're in the same situation the Falcons are like a year ago, where it's like, okay, we have a good team. Like, how do we maximize this? It's like, okay, Sam Darnold, come on down. And you can always work those contracts where maybe you take some of that money and make it monopoly money on the back end so that if he sucks, you can go in 2026 and go get Arch Manning or something. The Raiders, they might want a quarterback. The Giants probably want something, although I don't know if Sam Darnold wants to go back to New York, even if it is a different team. Those are just things to consider. I think there will be a market. I also think that, we are begging for just progress when it comes to JJ McCarthy. Like, if Sam Darnold came back, it wouldn't be progress. We're like, okay, we're at the same spot we were last year. And it might kind of raise the anxiety, like, oh, he's a bust. He's not going to be good. Like, he can't even though he hasn't thrown a football in like not 6 months, or I guess August, it would only be like 4 or 5 months, but you get the idea of what I'm saying. I just think, from a fan standpoint, I want to see JJ McCarthy get the keys, but from an analytical standpoint, if they do say, let's keep Sam one more year, I think they have a reason behind it.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. I'm just,
you don't want it to
I don't
happen.
know,
You're like
man.
me.
Like
I don't want it to
don't,
happen.
I don't.
And it,
And I just I struggle. I am not as confident that there's a market for him. I think at least not at the franchise tag type level of money. I'm interested to see if people think that it was Sam or how much credit. You have like the pie of credit. How much is given to KOC? Right? How many teams are like, oh, Sam was great this year and he showed his skill, but we don't have anyone nearly the level of KOC to maximize his potential. And even KOC couldn't get it out. And so I don't think there's going to be, and there's all it takes is one team. All it takes is, the Cleveland Browns to trade everything for Deshaun Watson and come in with you. But I don't know. Maybe I'm still getting over the last 2 weeks, but I struggle to see the market for Sam Darnold at a extremely high level.
So outside of Darnold, there's a lot of needs on this team. Um, Straight up, what do you want? Like, Christmas is done, all the presents have been unwrapped and everything, but I want to know, what do you want this offseason? We got $70 million, maybe 40 of it goes to Sam, or we're down to 35 or whatever. What do you want this offseason? What do you want the Vikings to fix?
One thing. There's obviously more than one hole, but if I can only pick one present under the tree, it is the same present I've wanted for at least 5 years, and that is some sort of interior lineman that doesn't get pushed over anytime we get to a playoff game where teams can rush completely up the middle and destroy any sort of quarterback, no matter the talent. I want you to go drop money on a Trey Smith from the Kansas City Chiefs. I would love a new center. I'm over our first round draft pick who's got tiny short arms and can get lifted off the ground by half the defensive tackles in the league. And then I want another guard on the other side. I want all three positions this year. I love Brian O'Neill and Darashaw, but I want I want some grown men in the middle of that offensive line. And so obviously corner, running back are other positions, but to me, none of that matters if we can't finally, protect our interior offensive line.
East Side Rio gets it. He says Vikings are too soft, need to get tougher.
Yeah.
That's why they need a grown ass man in the trenches. Like,
yes.
my one of my greatest intros at zone coverage. I didn't really fit with the article. I was kind of reading the other day, and I was like, oh well. But the idea that I had was mimicking the Dumb and Dumber bathroom scene where Jim Carrey goes into the bathroom and he sees "Come here for manly love" at 2:00, and he kicks down the door and Seabass is standing there. Well, like Garrett Bradbury, I could see the same thing, but it's just like Kenny Clark or Grady Jarrett or something just kicks in the door, just think of a happy place. Like,
yes.
I mean, it's frustrating. They never can find a guy, and it's like they've tried everything. They've tried the athletic dude, they've tried the converted tackle to guard, they've tried the guard to tackle thing. They've tried just about they tried the super, athletic tester. They tried the mauler with Ed Ingram. Ed Ingram was a power dude coming out of LSU, and like that just didn't work. Like, they've tried everything. And it's just like, if Trey Smith's out there, I'm backing up the Brinks truck to his house and be like, how much do you want? Like, be reasonable, but how much do you want? We are willing to give you a lot of money to solve this problem, because the problem is, like Diamond just mentioned, they're not tough. Or what did I was going
Rio.
East Side Rio. I was thinking of the country band. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
East Side Rio. Yeah, I mean, it's just like they have a toughness problem. It's just that it's a whole bunch of guys who are just trying to move around and get in position and clear. It's like, no, I want somebody to burst out the line and put a dude in the ground. Like, that is my number one need. I have some other needs. I guess if we want to go with just one present, in free agency, I want a corner. No disrespect to Stephon Gilmore. He was good. You are getting Mekhi Blackman back, and maybe you do re-sign Byron Murphy to remain in that slot role he played this year. But I was watching an old clip of Xavier Rhodes against Odell Beckham Jr. back from 2016. And it's just like, man, it's been a long time since the Vikings have had that shutdown guy on the edge. And that was all pro Xavier Rhodes. But I mean, they just haven't had that guy since. They haven't been able to find him. So if that's DJ Reed from the Jets, I would make an offer to him. Like, you can't sign everybody in free agency, but you only have 4 draft picks. I think DJ Reed would be great on this team. I think he could add a little snarl to the defense, play in Brian Flores' scheme, although I haven't looked up the man numbers or anything else on that front. But I like the idea of getting a top tier corner, and then you have, Mekhi Blackmon, Byron Murphy, if you choose to resign him. Even if you don't choose to resign Byron Murphy, I would invest that money into DJ Reed because that is an upgrade in my mind. So a corner is what I want. And then I'll add a bonus one. As far as the draft, I want a running back. I know they don't matter. I know Aaron Jones was really good, but he's also 30, which is like old Yeller territory for running backs. So it's like, love you, boy. I'm sorry. If this team got Ashton Jinty, that would be so much fun because I feel like that would be like the Infinity Gauntlet metaphor, right? You got Addison, Jefferson, Hawkinson, maybe JJ McCarthy's one of those stones, and then you put Ashton Jinty or Caleb Johnson from Iowa, and you watch this thing explode because they could not run the ball when they needed to. So those are the two things I want.
I'm a huge fan of Caleb Johnson, which is weird because he's an Iowa Hawkeye, and it just like goes against every fiber of my being. But I was at that game live this year where he single-handedly like was carving through a pretty good Gopher defense, like a really good Gopher defense this year. Obviously, the Boise State kid is amazing and would be my top choice. I don't think he makes it to us. But I really like Caleb Johnson. I would love to see him. I would love to bring back Aaron Jones and have kind of a duo for a year. And then, but I really like Caleb Johnson. And also, I also want to say, how good was prime Xavier Rhodes? Like, that dude, you talked about him. Like, I know it towards the end of his career, he was, getting all sorts of penalties and he kind of left like a stop. But there was a 3-4 year stretch where that dude was just a dog, and he was good. I loved him as a player. I loved the get hurt like everything was gonna break in his body and he was down for his career, and then in 3 plays later, like I just loved Xavier Rhodes in so many ways. So I'm glad you brought him up because top 10 favorite Viking of mine of all time was that dude.
He would get burned and then he'd grab his hamstring and come back
Loved
in.
it.
Sorry, Zim. Okay, I'm good. We're back now. I was trying to think about, I'm like, who are the top corners? Because I think Rhodes is like number 1. Because you had Antoine Winfield Jr. on the 2000, but like,
and he was good.
That, I mean,
Winfield was good, but he wasn't as lockdowny. There were battles that Rhodes would do and just shut guys down. And he was big too, so he could handle those big receivers. And Rhodes was a player.
He was a different player than Antoine Winfield Jr. too. Winfield Jr. was kind of like a Swiss Army. He was the nickel guy in a time where nickel guys were kind of unappreciated. Now, Byron Murphy, we're talking about giving him a big contract because he's done so well in the slot. Antoine Winfield Jr. played in there. He came up, stopped the run. Like he was just a different, he's a lot like Josh Metellus almost, just like a smaller version. Like Josh Metellus can do all those things. Antoine Winfield Jr. could also do some of those things. I'm sorry, Antoine Winfield, not Antoine Winfield Jr. Antoine Winfield Jr. can also do those things. He's a very good player. The Vikings should have drafted him in 2020, but we could
have a safety core of him and Kyle Hamilton. Think about that.
That makes me as depressed as the fact the Vikings are not playing this weekend. But if you need some motivation to watch some football, and by the way, it is divisional round. So, I mean, these games are likely going to be bangers. It's the best weekend in the NFL, in my opinion. And why not go to Underdog? because it is the best place to cash in on all of your takes during the playoffs. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all of your favorite athletes' performances. With their pickup game, you could win up to 1,000 times your money by just choosing higher or lower on your favorite players' stats like yards, touchdowns, interceptions. They've got all of your favorite teams, leagues, and stars to choose from. And Underdog is the only pick'em platform that puts the power to cash out in your hands. And they have rescues, which means that if a player gets hurt early in a game, you can get your money back and you receive a promo if your early injury causes you to lose. I've been an Underdog user. You play Underdog, Nick?
I do. I love it, even though I'm getting my butt kicked on these CFP games.
But it's the
But I
thrill.
love it.
It's the
so
thrill
much
of
fun.
the chase, Nick.
Yep.
And you know what? The Vikings are eliminated, but hell, I'll be doing some NFL divisional action. I'll probably get in on the college football championship when Ohio State probably smokes Notre Dame. I don't have to leave the couch. And if I do, I got an app. I can dial that up. I can dial up some parlays, or dial up some pick'ems in the grocery line if I want to. It's why Underdog is the best place to play pick'em. Download the app. Sign up with the promo code The Age, which is all one word. You see it on the screen here on the YouTube version, and you deposit now to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's promo code The Age, all one word, to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. You must be 18 years or older, 19 years or older in Alabama or Nebraska, 19 years or older in Colorado for some games, 21 years or older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado for some games. If you are concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. And in New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Okay, I know the Vikings aren't playing. It sucks, but is there a team you're cheering for here the rest of the way, or is there a game you're excited for this weekend, Nick?
So here's how my fandom works, right? Like I will probably, in my mind right now, I want to avoid everything football because I'm still like, why not us? Where is going to be our year?
Why?
I thought this
Yeah.
was it. Yep. So a part of me will be a little bit depressed, but I want stories that give me hope. And so I still think the two teams that I'd love to see break through is I think the Buffalo Bills would be my number one shot because if they can do it, why not us? I know some people I've talked to have been like, yeah, but then we'll be the only ones. And why do they get to it? But I'm like, you know what? Josh Allen's fun to watch. It's a fun team. They got amazingly great fans that deserve it, right? They are so dedicated and they live in Buffalo. So I think the Bills would be my top choice. I also love Lamar Jackson. I'd love him to get that one off his back. You know, Derrick Henry. They got all these gophers like Rashad Bateman and Daniel Falalele. So I kind of love the Ravens a little bit. And then I think out of the NFC, as long as it's not the Philadelphia Eagles, that's the only team that I want to lose every game that they ever watch. Like it was really hard. To watch them and the Packers to figure out like what I was feeling at that moment. Like, but yeah, anyone but the Eagles coming out of the NFC and I'll be all right. How about you?
You know what? The Bills Ravens game. It's like the Joker in the Dark Knight where he's got the pool cue and he's like, all right, we're going to have tryouts. Like they hand him a pool cue and he just goes, hey, you guys are going to fight. Yeah, it's basically just like those two are going to play off for my affection the rest of the playoff run. Whichever one wins, that's who I want to see win it. Obviously, don't want the Chiefs. I don't like Travis Kelce. I have no problems with Taylor. I just don't like Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. It's kind of the Texans won it. That'd be kind of cool, but I don't think it's going to happen. I wouldn't mind if the Rams won, which is kind of weird. And it comes with a certain scenario. Because if the Lions beat the Commanders, which I think they will, I think the Lions are going to beat the Commanders on Saturday. A Rams-Lions NFC Championship game would be absolutely cinema because Lions fans absolutely hate Matthew Stafford. They cannot stand him. And I don't know why. I feel like I might get to the bottom of it for an article in a couple of days here, but I feel like, Detroit fans just do not care for Matthew Stafford. And I don't know if it's like things his wife said. I don't know if, part of it is the Kirby Joseph thing, which everybody thinks he's dirty. It's not just Matthew Stafford, but to see Matthew Stafford go into Detroit, crush their soul again after many of them have been just kind of cocky this whole season, I would enjoy that very much. So if it is, and two, like if the Lions do win, I would be happy. It would be cool to see Dan Campbell lift that trophy because it would just be the most random thing ever. Like a couple years ago, we're like, this guy's I have a friend back on the old Homer Horn podcast, Renee Esparza. She is Miss Wisconsin, Queen of the Wishbone, because her husband is a high school football coach and always runs Wishbone, Wing T, all of those types of, run-oriented high school offenses. But her and I talked when it happened, and I said to her, I go, this is like the, you're sitting at a bar, and he's like, if you can drink that entire tower of beer, I'll hire you. And they go, you're on. And he slams a beer, and they're like, oh God, this isn't good. So to see him be a very good coach, even if it is like Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, I don't know. I would find humor in that, even though Lions fans would find some joy in it. I do want to touch on one other quick thing because somebody asked this question. It's the offseason. We got a little bit of time here. You mentioned Caleb Johnson, Iowa Hawkeye. But my former quarterback here at SDSU, I shouldn't say mine. I just covered the team. Markgranowski went to Iowa. North Cephas wants to know, why did Granowski leave SDSU? That's my old school.
Yeah, and now he's my least favorite quarterback in all of college football. So, thanks. But now I hate you.
I will say Mark was always he was awesome to talk to. I love talking to Mark.
Great.
He's a great kid.
Great. I hope he fails. I hope he fails horribly.
Let me. I was going to say I hope he succeeds enough, except when he plays the Gophers. Like I want to see the kid succeed because he is a good kid. I enjoyed talking to him. He always gave me very thoughtful answers, which, sometimes it doesn't happen when you talk to, and he always answered questions. Like the whole SDSU staff in general, from Jimmy Rogers to Ryan Olson to Danny Freund, who was there last year. Anytime Jesse Bobbitt, the defensive coordinator, even Chris Myers, the tight end coach. Funny story. When I did a story on tight ends last year, I asked for him at media day. He's like, are you sure you want me? I'm like, yeah, I want to talk to you. So they were all super nice, courteous. A lot of them went to Washington State with Jimmy Rogers. I hope they all succeed. Obviously, Gopher fan, I want to see Mark do well, but yes.
No,
what's that?
I was just going to say, no, he's great. With you covering them, I've watched a lot of SDSU football over the last few years, just kind of getting him. He seems like a great guy, seems like a great player. I'm more angry because the one thing Iowa never has is a quarterback, and the dude's a baller. He's a gamer, and that makes me upset and more like scared because I don't understand why you choose Iowa for your development. Have you seen their quarterbacks? I know a part of it's like I could be the missing piece, but I do not want him to succeed. But I think he will because he's a darn good player.
He's a very good player. And North Cephas also in the comments, he's saying, my guess is the money. Mark just didn't have anything else to do at South Dakota State. I mean, he's a two-time national champion. He is tied for the FCS record with Easton Stick for most victories by a starting quarterback. It's just one of those things. You got to move on. And I know he came back this year. He turned down a lot of good offers to come back. I just think it was time to move on. I don't think it directly had to do with Jimmy Rogers leaving. I think Gronowski had kind of made that decision earlier in the year that this was going to be his final year at SDSU. And, if he balls out at Iowa, he's going to be a draft prospect in the 2026 draft class. And maybe that's like as a mid-round prospect. But I mean, we've seen, Bo Nix is 24 years old and he had his fantastic rookie season. So I don't really think age is a factor. That's why I think Gronowski left. I don't talk to him personally or anything, but I mean, from what I've gathered, that's kind of it. And, hope he succeeds at Iowa, except against the Gophers.
Yeah,
but yes.
Players like that always are looking for a challenge. That's what makes them great too, right? And I think you hit it right. He did everything he could at that level. A part of him's probably got to know, like, can I do it at the the big boys? Can I do it at the next level and have that success? So, but I'm assuming money didn't hurt.
No. I some of that high V money probably came rolling in. I assume because that's how Iowa that's how every athletic department works, except for
good for him.
Gophers. But now, of course, if you're a fan of the show, you've seen Nick on here before, and that only means one thing because it's in the contract that I just made up off the top of my head. Nick's obligatory wrestling chatter. We are entering Royal Rumble season, Nick. Just quickly, the first question is the Royal Rumble not the best pay-per-view or sorry, PLE premium live event on the calendar?
Yeah, it's my favorite every year. I love Mania. Mania is the Super Bowl. I'm not trying to say it is bigger than Mania, but it is my favorite event. It is my favorite match. It sets the appetizers. It sets the stage for everything that's going to happen over the best months of wrestling every year. So yes, I would take the Rumble. If I had to pick one, the Rumble is my favorite. Over everything else that they do.
It's like opening day compared to the postseason. Like I'm more hyped for opening day of baseball than I am the postseason because everybody's playing. It's like a kickoff to summer unofficially, even though it's like 30 degrees in some places. But like, it's that excitement. This is the best time of the year to be a wrestling fan because you go down there. I've been to 2 already. Last year going down there, seeing everybody, how excited everybody was for the road to WrestleMania. It's why it is my favorite pay-per-view on the calendar. And hopefully another day I'll get to go to another one. But let's ask here, what is your hottest wrestling take going into the Royal Rumble in 2 weeks?
Oh, I mean, hottest take. I don't know if I have a hot take. I want to just how deep is this roster? So I was having a conversation with another friend who follows wrestling, and this may be one of the deeper Royal Rumbles that we've had in a long time where it is really hard to decide where they're going to go. I mean, you have Roman, Cena, Rollins, Punk, Drew, all of them have legitimate storylines to why they should be the one to win the thing. Right. And then you have The Rock hanging out there in the background, whether he gets involved or not, I don't know, but he's in your mind. Right. I mean, you look at who they have as their throwaway guys this year, guys who have power, but aren't going to win when Priest and Sammy and Jay and Finn Balor and Solo, those are your throwaway guys.
Yeah.
Where in a lot of years, they're your final four. That tells you your roster's deep. This family is hoping for a Joe Hendry sighting in the Royal Rumble. I think my daughters, the joke in our house is every time we have an Alexa or a Google machine in our house that plays music in our kitchen. And the girls all the time are like, hey, Dad, turn on Wicked songs. Dad, turn on Taylor Swift, turn on songs. And my running joke for the last few months is I always play the Joe Hendry theme song first. And I go, oh, I don't know how that came on. But they ended up loving it. And so now they wait for it and they put their hands back. You will hear us from space if Joe Hendry, they've never watched him wrestle once, but both of my daughters adore Joe Hendry because of that song. So I don't know if I have a hot take. I mean, I want to see what they're going to do with The Rock. The Netflix Monday night was weird. Like, that was my only, like, he was weird after all of this animosity. He was all, I'm here, part of the team. Go, Cody Rhodes. I'm proud of you. Hugging Roman. Like, was that a work? Does that mean The Rock doesn't have it in his schedule to come back? So they're kind of pumping the brakes on people thinking that. So I don't know if I have a hot take, which is a good thing. I don't know where they're going to go in a lot of ways, which is
It's
fun.
unpredictable right now. Like that's what's so much fun about it. It's like in previous years, like who is going to win and what. And I mean, if The Rock's music hits at the Rumble, it's kind of like, okay, he's winning. But like it's hard to project the card right now. Like from top to bottom, you don't know who's going to match. Like I don't know what they're going to do with Drew McIntyre. Like he's one of the top guys, and it's like I don't know who he's going to fight at WrestleMania. I don't know who, Kevin Owens, like, is he going to fight Sami Zayn, or is Randy Orton is lurking out there? We have no idea what he's going to do. There's just a lot to be excited about. And, in previous years too, we're saying who's going to be the mystery person or whatever. They don't need mystery people. They can just roll out whoever they want and go for it. So I am looking very forward to it. Two final questions, because this is one I like. Declan Goff pointed this out because he was on the show a couple weeks ago. Who do you think will be the person that is in the Royal Rumble the longest? Because that's how they create a star. If a guy lasts a little longer, you're kind of like, oh, look at this. Look at Gunther, throwing people out.
Yeah, I mean, so it's got to be someone who they want to look good but not win it, right? So that is a spot I could see Drew. I know Drew doesn't need to be made as a star, but it feels like something he could do in terms of being close again, but someone or something bad happens, which is just kind of his character, right? I could see Roman, like to really show his dominance again, right? Mow through people, but then somebody eliminates him late. And so he looks extremely strong. When I look at young guys, oh man, who's some of their big guys? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, who are some? Who do you got? Who are some of your young kind of? It's usually the brute type. I guess I can't think of a young star that they have right now. Bronson Reed, I could have seen that, but if he's hurt, right, like that felt like a role for Bronson Reed to come in and dominate, and then get eliminated by 6 guys, and everyone's like, oh. But who do you got?
All right, I got two picks.
Okay.
Braun Breaker, which I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Like Breaker could do it, but like he's also like Braun Breaker's a lot. I think he's better than Goldberg as a wrestler, but I think he's very like high impact, very quick, like blink and you'll miss it type of stuff. My second one, Dirty Dom. I could see Dom. I could see. Well, here's the thing. This is how the face turn starts, because Judgment Day is having a little bit of a grip now. So Dom comes into the Rumble early. Let's say he enters 3 or something. He's lasting around 24, 25, and he gets dumped. Everybody starts kind of cheering him, and Finn Balor gets pissed off. So
I love that. That would be fantastic. That's like the right? The anti-brute doing it. Oh, I love that, Chris. Chris, I'm gonna get Paul on the phone here and see if we can get that idea in his ear, because I think that's gold right
Dom's
there.
coming. What did Ray come in at 2000? Was he 1 or 2? Did he?
I don't know. If you do it, you got to put him 1, right?
Yeah.
Like the down, like, oh man, and he's got to eliminate someone in the Judgment Day by accident or at some point in the match.
Maybe he eliminates Balor. That could be it.
Yep.
All right. We got that little quick question out of the way. Here's my other one, and it's obvious. Who's winning the Royal Rumble match?
Oh man, if you had to, gun to my head pick, it feels CM Punk to me, or John Cena. Cena came back, and okay, it's no secret. I was never a big John Cena fan. I was one of the assholes who was booing him at every moment.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I kind of like him. I like this version of him. I like the underdog. I like the idea of John Cena. Like, I don't know. But if I had to pick, I would probably go CM Punk as my favorite to win the match.
John Cena is like when Kevin Garnett came back, or like, Torrey Hunter coming back to the Twins, or this is a Viking show. What's a good like Vikings one? Like a player who came back at the like Chris Dolman. That's a little like too old.
Did he? Yeah.
What's that?
Sure. I don't know. Randy Moss the second time. Other than he lasted 3 weeks, right?
Yes.
When he came back and caught a touchdown pass from Brett Favre.
With that initial excitement. Yeah. John Cena is just going to go nuts and go, I wouldn't feed that shit to my dog. No, that's what John Cena is. And like, to be honest, there's like a 5-year lull in Cena's career. It's like, what the hell is this? Like, and maybe it wasn't his fault, but like, if you go back and watch, you're kind of like, yeah, it makes sense why we booed. I think for the men, I said John Cena. I think I got to stick to it. I think they'll put him against Gunther, and that'll be one of the matches they have at WrestleMania. Plus, CM Punk also has that favor from Paul Heyman for helping out the bloodline. So that could be a way to do that. I do want to see with the TNA partnership, is Jeff Hardy in the Rumble? And if he is, does he have a stare down with CM Punk? Because that would be awesome. But that's what I want to see. Women's very murky this year.
Yeah. I mean, the two people I thought were the favorites, right? Well, Tiffany, I didn't know if it was really a favorite because she had the briefcase, but it felt like a Rhea moment again. I don't think you have Liv win it after she just lost the title. That doesn't make sense. To me, this feels like a comeback. They have a few superstars of their big stars, Charlotte and Becky, and even Alexa Bliss out there if they wanted to make a splash. This could be a moment for Bianca Belair to really get out of the tag team picture and back into the main event scene where she belongs. And so this feels like someone returning and winning to me, because I don't think there'll be a return on the men's side.
I'm leaning towards Charlotte, but that's I mean, I don't think they give it to Becky. I don't think, it's like Bailey won it last year and she's kind of down there. Like Bianca, she's got the Jade thing kind of that's another interesting storyline. It's like, where do they go with that? It's fun. Like, a lot of people on here, probably you might not like wrestling. You come here and you should come here for the Vikings talk. But I mean, when your team gets bounced in horrific fashion, this is what happens. We talk about wrestling, and you know what? It's fun. Like like the cool part is it's available now. Like people who are just casually listening to this can be like, I'm going to flip on Peacock and the Royal Rumble's on, and like, I'm going to check it out for like 20 minutes. And you don't have a huge, financial obligation to watch it like you do with some other companies' pay-per-views. Yeah, that's kind of it. Any final thoughts on the Rumble? You want to drop anything?
No, I'm super stoked for it. I'm excited for it. It starts the best time of the year for sports or for wrestling fans, and so I wish it was tomorrow. I have to wait a few more weeks. That's my only other take, is I don't want to wait.
I know. It's like I start my new job a week from Monday, which I have not announced yet, but that's like the thing. It's like once I get through this week, it's Royal Rumble, and then so it's kind of like when you go back to school and like the first Vikings games, just like there, and you're like, oh man, I just got to get through. Not that I'll be doing syllabus week, but you know what I mean? It's just kind of like, I just got to get through this week and we got Vikings football. But Until we have Vikings football, you can check out the Viking Age. We got everything going on. I've got my 10 bold predictions up at the Viking Age right now. Adam, of course, he's got a bunch of stuff going through the Kevin O'Connell stuff, maybe some stuff as far as what the Vikings need to do this offseason. Go there, www.vikingage.com. All of your stuff there. He is Nick Marty. I am Chris Schad at The Real Chris Schad. This is the Viking Age podcast. We do this every Monday with a late week episode right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. And we're also in podcast form on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But however you consume us, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode and we can spread the word to the masses. For Nick Marty, I am Chris Schad. This has been the Viking Age podcast.